talk about the goal. When they scored, his fucking smug little face was like, he couldn't cheer, but he was like that. And he was jigging up and down and getting really excited. Yeah, I just wanted to fucking punch him. But anyway, but there was him, and then there was this younger lad. I don't know how the lad was. The lad must have been about, I'd say, no more than nine or 10. And when Chelsea scored, he was like, he burst out with, "Fuck you, Chelsea!" like this. At which point the other adults, the non-Chelsea supporting adult that were there, "Yeah, he's great lad, great lad." I'm like, really? What's going on here? So buoyed on by this, he spent most of the second half just doing a one-finger salute towards the pitch. And they're like, "Go on, lad, go on." I'm like, okay, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I had the wrong parenting book, but that certainly wasn't what I was teaching like my son when we were at football. You will not do any of that shit when you're there, irrespective. So anyway, but going back to the goal very quickly, it was of all people that fucking hate him, Rudiger, absolutely hate him. Just winds me up. I hate him, but his movement was good, and again, it was Tanganga. I feel that was culpable for losing his marker, costing us that goal, and I felt that in the Morecambe game, it was also Tanganga that lost. And I know we went on to win the game, but actually, when you watch back the highlights, it's him again that loses the man and it gives him a free attempt on goal. And I think we spoke about it before about his confidence and stuff, but there's got to be more to it than that. If you're consistently, I think we spoke when Sissoko was there and other players, the lack of aerial ability or lack of mobility to prevent the opposition from attacking the ball, and he seems to be really floundering with that at the moment. Agree?
On silence.
I can talk for an hour, but I don't want to.
He said it all.
I can talk for an hour.
He has. But he let his man go there, didn't he? And as you said, really, and he's done that a number of times. You have to wonder whether it's a positional thing. Like we said before, does he fit into a back three, or a confidence thing? But I'm getting to the point where I really think, and like I do think he's a decent defender. But I believe we mentioned this before, but a move away on loan maybe for a while to another club where he can really find his feet, have regular game time, and he might come back then a much better player. I don't think we should sell him, because I think there is a player in there, but he might need to do what Kane did and go away for a couple of loans.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no harm in that actually. Yeah.
And I mean, one of the reflections I had was whether he was targeted by Chelsea, because I noticed that when Sessegnon came on, he was targeted by Chelsea for set plays, and Rudiger spent a lot of time trying to wind him up, chatting to him, getting in his face, getting in his ear, just from corners and stuff. They blocked him off a couple of times, and then I think Sessegnon reacted to something, and then Rudiger spent the time, as they were jogging back into position, he spent the time just needle, chat. You know what I mean? Trying to wind him up, put him off his game, get a reaction. So, and I don't think we're not streetwise enough. I think I mentioned, I think I tweeted about that. With the first penalty, as soon as that happened, they all got in Marina's face, all of them, apart from Kepa, who first of all went up to Kane and followed Kane around the box, just chirping in his face again, chirp, 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 chirp. And then once Mora decided he was actually going to fucking get over there and help a teammate out, then Kepa went from doing that to then trying to dig up the penalty spot, which none of our players seemed to react to. They just seemed to, a lot of them were just stood expecting, I think, that the penalty to be overturned. You know,
but the thing is, though, being the whole sort of the streetwise thing, it's nothing new to these players. Mourinho, told them obviously they need to be intelligent cunts, and the message doesn't appear to have got through to them that we need to have that ruthlessness in when we play, because I think generally a lot of teams just see us as a complete soft touch.
It's not in a lot of our players' nature. The only person it is Romero. I think he's naturally got that kind of spiteful side of him. Lamela had it before he went as well, but we don't have any other players like that. Like Rudiger, that as you mentioned, he can't help himself. It's when that I can't remember who it was now, was on the floor and he just booted the ball at him. When he was and it's just in him. Yeah. It's the spitefulness, but unfortunately, you need players like that.
Yeah,
you really do. I mean, it's horrible, and all the opposition, they all hate him.
Yeah,
but you need players like that. Yeah.
And I mean, he's loved. He's absolutely loved by their fans. But he can actually play as well. He can defend and he can play. So it's having that whole blend of actual ability and then the annoying stuff to piss the opposition off, which he seems to have in abundance. Okay, should we move on? Because we don't want to considering there's a lack of football to talk about, we're probably going to still end up talking for ages. So we obviously Chelsea was disappointing, and then we had the North London derby to look forward to, and then so they played on the Thursday, had a man sent off, and literally no sooner had the game finished, then we started to hear rumours that they were going to that they might be applying to the Premier League to have the game postponed. So really frustrating. I'd managed to arrange to not go to my football on Sunday. So I said, it's a North London derby, I'm going to that. So they were like, fine, no worries. It's fine. We've got cover. It's sweet, no worries. And then lo and behold, the fucking game's on the Saturday, the game's called off. Our game was called off as well. So there was no football at all for me on Sunday. So I was really pissed off. But anyway, so what were your thoughts? I mean, it just takes the piss, I think. If you look at what they had and what they were claiming, to be able to request the Premier League to call the game off and and actually having that request granted is really frustrating. I think it kind of sets a really poor precedent.
Yeah, I think it's a farce. They've made a rod for their own back, really, the FA here now, because you can have not just COVID cases, you can have mitigating circumstances, which mean that players who are injured can count into that a list for asking for a postponement. The clubs have agreed that themselves. They've all got together and said that that's what they want. And now it's like open season. It wasn't like that last season in the height of the pandemic where nobody was in the ground. This season, it's happening all the bloody time. And there's going to be a big old pile up of fixtures at some point soon if they don't get a grip of it. And and if you're looking at this in a kind of conspiratorial way, it's funny how Arsenal then loaned out 2 players just before they had to make this decision on whether they postpone it or not, which meant they didn't have enough players. So and sure as shit, you can imagine they'll all be ready and ready to go for the semi-final midweek.
But it's funny, they couldn't play the game yesterday because they don't have enough players. Yet they loaned a player out today to Udinese. Yeah. It's just an absolute piss.
Yeah,
their under 23s played Friday night.
Yeah.
Leeds had seven kids in the squad yesterday against West Ham.
Don't if you're doing like a loan and stuff like that. So any kind of player movement, transfers, loans, whatever. Does that not have to be ratified by the Premier League? Isn't that all ratified by the Premier League as well? I mean, they have to sanction this because there's things like they keep a track of these things because you're not allowed to move to more than two clubs or something within a season. So they must have a say in what happens. Go on, Lee.
Yeah, but don't forget, Steve, that the Premier League is also a members' club. So it's all the teams. They do what they do what they damn well want.
Yeah, but the committee, that would have had to sanction, because the committee have to sanction the or approve the request to postpone the fixture. And it's just, I don't know. I don't even know where we go with it. I mean, as you say, Lee, the fact that they're talking about having available players, and those that include suspensions and injuries. This has never been something that's been a factor in the past. You can't just say, right, well, we've got too many suspensions and injuries, so we can't. And in that case, did Xhaka get himself deliberately sent off, in order to fuck about with the numbers, because they knew that they were light. They were light on numbers. All of this needs, bearing in mind, African Cup of Nations players not being available. You know that this is a factor. Every club knows that this is a factor, and there's a number of clubs that are very careful, I think, with the number of players that they buy that are, that are African and African nationals, because internationals, because they know that they'd be affected mid-season. You can't afford to have 2 or 3 of your starting 11 players,
If they can call it off because it's not convenient for them, which is what we're getting to now. This is about, this is about the sort of club or manager's convenience we're getting to now. So what they're going to do, you're going to have a position where Man U then say, look, we haven't got Ronaldo available. Let's call the match off until we get everyone we want. Let's call the match off. And we're going to end up in a situation which is not only going to be prejudicial to us, because we got 5. We're talking about Leicester might even want to call this game off on Wednesday. That could be 5 games we've got to try and find space for in this calendar, and that means we're probably going to have to cram games in, and that's going to be prejudicial to us.
Okay, well, exactly, and this is another thing that are some clubs now thinking about how can we impact that team, because at the moment they've already got 3 games that they've got to play. We've already had, I don't know if it was last season, but we had to play a number of games within a really short period of time. And we'll be in that situation again this season, because there's just nowhere in the calendar that it's going to sit. So they're going to have to cram them in somewhere, or we have to sacrifice, for example, the FA Cup. So we'll have, we'll play the FA Cup on one day, and then, a day or 2 later, we'll have to play a Premier League game, which means that you ultimately send a weakened team to the FA Cup. So the club will have to then make a decision as to what they prioritise. Do they prioritise trying to actually go further in a cup competition, or is top 4, our priority? And it's just cack. I think was it Lee? Was it you that mentioned about Leeds having so many youngsters on their bench? Man City did the same. It's just.
And abroad, Bayern did. They played a 16-year-old. What's the point in having a top academy talent if you're not then going to use them in these kind of situations?
Well, I was reading something that most clubs have 60, 70, 80 actual footballers on their books. And if teams are turning around and saying we don't have enough players, what message is that sending out to these youngsters that are learning their trade and have aspirations to be top professional footballers, when their clubs don't have any belief or any sort of confidence in them to put a 15 or 16-year-old out there to do a job? I mean, Leeds are a prime example that they went out and beat a half decent West Ham team with a load of kids in the squad, which is phenomenal. But just what you were saying was about a fixture pile up. What happens when we get to the back end of the season and we have to play 5 games in 10 days, for example, and we've got a load of injuries? Do we postpone games then? Do we still, and then prolong the season until we go into July, August?
We won't be allowed to. It'll be only certain teams seem to have preferential treatment, Jay, as you say. Leeds had to play Arsenal with 9 with 9 eligible players and and they've struggled